All right, now we are to the portion of our show that Locked On Sports fans want to hear most. We got Locked On Twins insider Brandon Warne joining us late night for you last night. The Twins pulled it off, but more importantly, you're here with us today. How you doing, man? I love the sign.
I've been doing those for the last few games, and it's getting a little traction, but we'll see. It's a lot of fun, and when they lose, you have a little fun with it. When they win, you have even more. So yeah, it's a good morning. Like I showed you my first cup of coffee, so I'm still kind of working through the early morning cobwebs. But the Twins got the W last night, 3-2. And it's always easier to get up in the morning when the Twins win than when they lose. And my Twitter feed is filled with people who are grumbling.
Well, at least they can grumble about people about our team winning. And the fact that I read your tweet, you said we are on pace. The Twins are on pace to win 93 games this year. I want to know, can they get 100? 100 wins this year. It's only been 2 teams that's done that in the Central Division since, I guess, in the last 17 years. And the Twins are one of those teams. So am I looking too far ahead, or is that possible with what we have seen thus far?
I mean, it's going to take a really strong effort. I would never rule it out just because the rest of the division is not that good. You know, if you've got 4 other teams jockeying for, like, say, 76-ish wins, that leaves a lot of wins on the table for a team to take off. And it feels like the Twins are that team this season. Their pitching, and I know we'll talk about that a little bit, needs to get there. But they won a game with your guy, Chris Archer, going 4 innings, and then they're going to have 2 of their best guys here coming back in Joe Ryan and Sonny Gray. So usually they seem like they have a letdown game in every series, and that kind of felt like that might have been Monday night in Seattle. But they went out and did everything they needed to do, and now you got to get excited about having the 2 big starters coming back. So I like their chances to shoot past that 93-win projection or prediction, or I guess just pace. But 100, man, that's going to be tough.
So I remember some overachieving Twins teams of the past, 2015, 2017. A lot of people would write, yeah, well, the underlying analytics would say they're going to regress, or the expected win-loss isn't very good. Do you think this Twins team is overachieving? Do the numbers suggest that they're going to come back to the pack in any way, whether it's like an inordinate number of 1-run wins, or, you know, Luis Arraez batting out of his head, or some of the young guys hitting a little too well to the point where they might regress? Do you think is that a risk of that happening?
Yeah, there is. And it's funny you bring that up, because I was looking at their Pythagorean record. And so to make that easy, it's basically runs scored, runs allowed, and then they math it out to how many wins a team typically would have. And I think they were 34-29 on that. And I think they've won, what are they, 36-27. So they're +2, which is not crazy, but they've been better in tighter games. To some extent, that can prove that you're overachieving a little bit, but also 2 good teams just lock down the late innings. And Joan Duran has been, my father, like I said on the bulletin board here, he's locked down some late games. And Emilio Pagan, it hasn't looked pretty, but it's been effective. You know, he's given up about 1 billion home runs, but he looked pretty solid last night. Hit 97 on the gun, got a pretty good split. They're doing the things necessary to win tight games, which to me, with pitching coming back and with some offensive guys getting healthy, makes it seem more likely that this is a legitimately good team that is not going to drop back into like a 500 pace and really have to worry that they're going to fall to, like, let's say, 3rd in the division.
Yeah. I want to stay on that pitching situation. We talked a little bit earlier. Chris Archer, we're from the same area. Like, I grew up watching Chris Archer since I was 10 years old. And I told you, there in the city of Raleigh, North Carolina, there's not one restaurant that he'll go to that someone would take care of his meal. The guy is just a legend in the state. But I had someone ask me this the other day, and they asked it for the Vikings, just knowing that I work for the Vikings, but I'm going to ask it for the Twins. And I got to ask you, is the Twins situation like the Vikings right guard situation, like where you just throw bodies at the position and hopefully one sticks?
Yeah, you're looking for stability, and you're hoping it comes in the form of someone that you maybe didn't see. That hasn't worked in the past. I don't want to besmirch the great name of Alex Boone, but he certainly didn't play that well. I mean, maybe he was on the left side. I can't remember for sure. But throwing money at a problem doesn't always work. And I think we've seen that a lot of different times in free agency with the Vikings. And the Twins have not done that as much with pitching. They've done the hey, let's see if this guy can recapture the magic. Because obviously Chris Archer was an absolute stud with the Rays. Like that trade that sent him to Pittsburgh brought back 3 legit amazing players. That goes to show prospects. Sorry, that goes to just how well regarded for he had thoracic outlet syndrome. So yeah, he's been an absolute stud early in his career, and they're hoping to get him back to where he was. And the Twins are just that kind of team. They have a pipeline of young guys they want to get up here. COVID kind of waylaid that. And they've had some guys with elbow issues just because it's pitching, and that's going to happen. But in the meantime, yeah, they're just going to go get the Chris Archers, the J Haps, the Matt Shoemakers. And sometimes it turns into an absolute disaster, as we saw last year. And then this year, Archer hasn't given him the length, but he's looked fairly solid.
Brandon, of this cadre of sort of young, anonymous bullpen arms, we're kind of getting introduced to a lot of them this year for the first time as Twins followers. Who's your favorite? Who do you think is sustainably good? Who can be a key linchpin to this bullpen going forward?
I wouldn't have said it before, but I think it might be Griffin Jacks. I think we all expect a guy like Joan Duran who throws 100+ miles per hour. You throw that hard, you have to be good. With Jacks, I think he had like a 6 ERA last year. He was giving up homers by the bucket load, and he comes out this year throwing 96. He's throwing darts out there, and in shorter bursts, we've seen that happen. Glenn Perkins did it, and Tyler Duffy did it to some extent. Trevor May to some extent. Taylor Rogers especially. You got the starters who come out and throw harder, but because not everybody progresses the same. Jax has picked up velocity. He's got a good slider, and even the changeup's kind of a show me thing where you can keep guys off balance. And right now, second in their power rankings if you were to do a bullpen power ranking behind Duran. And I don't think anybody would have seen that coming into this season. And so for me, he's probably the most sustainable. But I like a lot of these guys. Jarrell Cotton has that funny changeup. I guess he's not super young, but he's new to the Twins. And then a lot of these young guys have different angles, different pitches, last night they had 6 relievers, and they went like soft righty, hard righty, lefty, and they went all over the map. And then they come at you with Duran, who's like nothing you've seen, and then Pagan comes in and closes it out. So I think the bullpen is creative, and I think too that might even be more of an apt comparison to the Vikings right guard because they're trying so many things out there.
Well, we know this, they are, and the Vikings are trying to figure their right guard position out also. And we always say if you have a really good O-line, that can propel you to the ultimate goal. If you have a really good bullpen, that can propel you to the ultimate goal. So, do you think? This is my last question. Do you think the Twins are the next team to actually win a championship here for Minnesota fans?
Wow, that's tough because I really got on the bandwagon of the Wolves this year, and I think the Vikings are solid, and even the Wild. I mean, how can you hate on any of these teams right now? The biggest disappointment has been how the Lynx have started this season, just because your superstar's pregnant. And we saw last year with the Braves, when you're struggling in the middle of the season and you trade for a couple of guys, one of them being Eddie Rosario, someone very familiar to Twins fans, you never know what will happen. They had one of their pitchers blow out a wheel. I think it was his ankle, and he was like a stud. They had all kinds of bad things go wrong and still won the World Series. You don't need things to be perfect to win the World Series, and I think Twins fans lose sight of that. This team right now, the balance, they got kind of that it factor, and they just seem to genuinely like each other. I really like this team. I'm not saying they're going to win 100 games, sweep their way to the World Series, and be listed with the 1927 Yankees, but it's like I always say, enjoy the ride because the destination might suck. If this season is fun and they lose in the playoffs, don't throw away the season because they didn't do anything in the playoffs.
Vikings fans, I hope you heard that.
Yeah.
Don't throw away
well,
the
I'm a
season.
Vikings fan, so that's why. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Sam, you got anything else before we go to break?
Buyers at the deadline, Brandon?
Yeah. I think they have to add pitching. Maybe not necessarily a big-time starter, but, they love those projects, the guy they think they can make a slider look better from. And that was what Chris Paddock was going to be until his elbow went. So, yeah, I do. Do you have a time for me to tell a Chris Archer story, by the way?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
So we were teasing this off the air, but he was at a restaurant here in Minneapolis. I think this was back in his Tampa Bay days, and he saw Max Kepler, and he's like, "Oh, send that man a bottle of wine," kind of. And so anyhow, that was probably like a Friday night, I think. And then they faced off on Sunday, and Kepler homered off him, and he's like, "Man, I wish I hadn't done that." He's just like, "Come on, man. I take care of you, and this is how you take care of me." So I've never forgotten that story. I heard it, I think it was probably like 4 or 5 years ago. And I'm sure they had a good laugh over that when Archer joined the team this year.